All right, Wade, do we want to get started this morning?
Yeah, thanks for everybody joining in. And Dave, needs no introduction to everybody on this call. But probably there may be some people joining in later for this fishing links. I've been enjoying the videos that we put out, and this might be one of those videos that other people may have interest in. Dave is a engineer, fluvial geomorphologist, e- decades of experience, all around great guy, dreamer, adventurer. And a lot of times, I've had the benefit of knowing him for years. And a lot of the things that he comes up with when they first come across sounds kind of sensational or maybe maybe bigger than life. But some of those things I've really seen come to fruition, and as I know other people on this call has. And I'm hoping this fishing links may be one of those. So, Dave, you want to take it away?
Sure, sure. All right, this is a idea. It's come out of the idea of people sharing ideas with me. So there's a lot of people connected to this. I cannot say that it's just my idea, but I'm going to present it today in and actually at the National Stream Conference in Louisiana. One of the presenters on here, Max Linder, will be presenting on this at that conference as well. So just to kind of give you a little bit of reference on the fact that a lot of people have kind of come ahead of this with ideas and shared with others, and I get to kind of share this idea with you. But the idea of fishing links is kind of a way of promoting sustainability. One of the issues that we see with promoting sustainability is that folks don't have recreation and sustainability. So in general, people will go out to a golf course and they like recreating on a golf course. Well, golf course isn't generally sustainable. People will go out to a baseball field and they'll play baseball, but that's not really sustainable. So our idea is, what would it look like for us to create a sustainable recreational sport? So this is really something that could be kind of brought onto any kind of restored ecosystem, as long as there's a pathway to get through there. I'm going to turn a couple people off here just because I have some echoing. So if you get turned on to mute, go ahead and unmute yourself later if you have questions. So we believe that, this was shared with us in 2019, right before COVID, from a friend that has a fishing ranch up in Colorado, Wyoming, and he wanted to create a fly fishing golf course. And he had it for various reasons, and he believed this was kind of a gift from God, and he shared it with us. And we encouraged him to be a little bit slower in how he created a fly fishing golf course. In other words, get permits and not be in a place where he's going to be put on the front page of a newspaper. But he shared the idea with us, and we've been moving forward with it since then on places where it seemed appropriate. So we believe, unlike a traditional golf course, these can be fishing links can be designed to have no negative impact and actually create a sustainable restored area. So basically a happy ecosystem, no footprint on it. We do propose pathways through the fishing links courses just so people can have connection to it, but not in places that are critical habitats. So you could put this on the backside of a mitigation bank pretty easily. You just would have to write it into your MBI, or basically the banking instrument that says, hey, this is what mitigation is, this is what it isn't. And then also the idea of promoting native fisheries within healthy ecosystems. A lot of times people get excited about fishing, but they only get excited about fishing big fish because that's the way that people have kind of pushed fishing in the past, because we eat fish, and we want to catch big fish because they produce more yields. But in a place where a lot of the fishing that's being done now is not for eating, it's just for recreation, the idea of creating native fisheries that can promote native fish and native species by creating new tackle and new ways of catching fish is part of what we want to be doing with fishing links. So the focus is restoring wonderment and wild awe in fishing while promoting native ecosystems and being an advocate for native small body species, as well as the exciting idea of catching a large bodied fish or a trophy fish. So if you can remember when you were young, you remember catching a fish, or you remember being out in the wild, and you just remember that feeling of awe that you had. And it was just so amazing to see a fish, see the coloration of the fish, see the geometric patterns on the scales of a fish, and just be amazed by a fish. And it didn't matter what type of fish it was, and some of us are lucky. This is Max, who's one of the guys that is coming up with this concept. And as he gets older, he has his sunglasses on, but you can imagine he's probably about the same amount of awe in catching a fish. A guy named Dochner Keltner just came out with a book in the last year called Awe. It's the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life. And what this talks about is how the emotion, the feeling, the spiritual connection of awe, whatever awe is, has a transformative power in how we interact, how we view ourselves, and how we view others in life. So that idea of awe is part of what it means when we're catching fish and we're amazed. It's this idea of being in something that's mysterious. How does a fish live underneath the water? And yeah, we can understand it as a scientist, but what does that area underneath the water look like? What's a fish's day look like? And you remember those ideas of awe that you had when you were a kid catching these fish. We're in Colorado, and if you go to Colorado, people say, what type of fish are in Colorado? And most people are going to say trout. And there are trout in Colorado. And Colorado doesn't have as many native fish as some other places do. I know, for example, we were in Alabama a couple of weeks ago, and Alabama has a large number of native fish species. Colorado doesn't have as many native fish species, but we still have an awful lot of native fish species. And in general, the recreational opportunities associated with the native fish species generally aren't super large unless they're large bodied and something that somebody has historically used for food. So the whole concept of fishing links, as Kurt and Max laid out, is what would it look like if you could catch a whole bunch of different species of fish and be kind of amazed by all the different colorations, all the different shapes. One of my friends that owns a fishing ranch in Wyoming, he told me the biggest thing about catching fish to him is just to see the variations and the colorations of the same species. So he'll look at a brown trout and he just gets amazed by all the different variations and colorations and geometric shapes of a brown trout, and that's only one fish he's catching. But imagine if you could catch all these in a 4-hour period. That'd be a pretty amazing opportunity, and definitely something that would put you in kind of wonderment and awe. You very rarely see somebody hold up a fish like this where they're not smiling or not amazed. So imagine a place, in a lot of the opportunities we work in, we have interactions between cold water and warm water fisheries. In general, people go fishing for warm water, cold water. Very rarely will people go back and forth between cold water and warm water fisheries. But in a fishing links course, we think it would be a really neat opportunity to create courses where you go between these ecosystems that are, well, they're in the same region, but they're small micro ecosystems where you have a cold water fishery and then a warm water fishery right next to that. So you could provide someone with an experience. What that means is you can basically find a way to guide a fisherman through an area where they know that they have a chance of catching different species of fish. As some people were raised where you just get thrown outside and you figure out a pathway and go to figure out what to do in nature. There's other generations and other people that have not been thrown outside and figured out what to do in nature. They look for a pathway. So in some ways, this is almost creating a pathway for people to be connected back into nature, with the hopes of eventually they can enjoy it and find their own pathways to be in the future and kind of blaze their own path. So the golf course layout is kind of a neat opportunity to create this guided pathway for these multiple fishing opportunities. So golf courses work well with the idea of multiple species in a fishing park or a fishing ranch. You know, fish are different based, and it's kind of each fishing hole could be different based on each golf hole. So you could have a different fish or target species in each hole. The fishing is kind of a journey through nature. Golf is a journey surrounded by nature. So a lot of parallels in creating your own adventure. Eventually, we'd want to have people jump off and say, hey, now I'm going to go off and do a sand lot idea, create my own adventure here in fishing, opposed to say, hey, I have to always go to a fishing links course. So, you know, holes can be now based on the type of fish. It's a journey, and it provides a structure and a control for participants, no longer a whole day event. And of course, some people would love to be out fishing for the entire day, but there's a lot of people that want to be able to schedule a journey as well. As you can imagine, if you were to say, hey, we want to do a fishing links business outing, like you would a golf business outing, you don't probably want to have that be a whole day event. You want it to be structured and say, okay, I'm going to get off the course in 2 hours and go on to the next idea. So part of the location of where we position these courses, or where these courses get built, will also be related to who we expect to use it. But this is kind of the concept, this fishing golf idea, or this fishing links idea. And links is, of course, the original word for golf when golf was first kind of introduced. So that's where the links idea comes in there. So one of the concepts that came up is shortly after I was with my friend Kurt on his fishing ranch in Wyoming, Colorado, and he shared the idea with me, a camp that was close to our heart that I worked at as a youth, and my wife had worked at a youth, and we met at closed. It was a summer camp, and it went up for sale, and it was during COVID. It wasn't overly expensive for the amount of property it had, and we investigated the idea of buying the camp and creating mitigation on the camp. But with the mitigation, we had a lot of extra ponds. So we said, well, what can we do with those ponds? And we said, well, let's try to use Kurt's idea of a fishing golf course out here. And that's kind of where we came up with the idea of mixing cold water, warm water together. And this is a release below a dam in central Pennsylvania. So it had a good cold water and warm water fishery. By setting up different holes, and holes are just kind of regions you can fish at, then we could basically set up a course. So this is kind of where the concept started at. This property was sold to somebody else, but we're continuing on with this property. Even in April, we're lined up to have a short course where we're teaching there on fluvial geomorphology, and we're in very rough talks with the state of Pennsylvania of still creating this course as a recreational fishery. So the main part of the campground is on the other side. You can see there's two highways here, and the course would be in between there, and the main part of the campground is on the east side of this picture, or the right side of the picture, and that's on the east side of 322, going from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to State College. So, but the idea is, if we labeled each hole numerically, we could create a pathway. We could change those pathways. If we had bonus holes, then we could take some holes into maintenance and stewardship, and then be able to put another hole in there, and we just change the pathways. If we logically lay out a 2-track path through these areas, then we can work it like you do in changing tee boxes and golf courses, where you change around areas for maintenance. So it enables everyone an opportunity to kind of create a different adventure and have adventures change seasonally. So we have two little slogans that we're thinking of. One is the path to tight lines, bent rods, and fish landed, related to kind of the idea of creating a pathway or a journey associated with this fishing. And then another one is related to one of the next concepts we'll talk about, which is the creation of an app-based program where you can take a picture of a fish in 2 dimensions, and it will give you an approximate length, weight, and girth of the fish just by standard iPhone technology that's out there. So we're talking about creating an app where the tagline would be "from the screen to stream." So getting people from that idea of a Pokemon Go, finding some sort of character in nature, but this one they have to catch, to basically get into the stream and just being excited about being in the stream. As some of you may know, youth fishing is pretty low in most states. So we have a number of state organizations: Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Wyoming Game and Fish, and Michigan DNR, and some other states that have an interest in what this could look like for promoting youth fishing and people to be able to get involved in fishing, since the need for people to go out and go fishing has significantly changed over the years. The state organizations are trying to find ways to promote youth into fishing and hunting. So the idea is you create these courses, and then when you're left, when you're done, this will go onto a digital scorecard, or it could be a paper scorecard. And then you'll say, hey, this is what my score was. I won the fly links versus my buddy or my friend or whoever was out there with me. Or you just go out there and be amazed. So it creates a sport that's a little bit different. So a couple other concepts that we have, just quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but all these fly links courses are places that are being developed for other reasons or restored for other reasons. And the fly links concept is just, or the fishing links concept is just something that is left on the top as kind of icing on the ecosystem restoration project. So Horn Creek is a family church camp in central Colorado, and it's at the base of a 13,500 foot peak called Horn Peak, and there's a creek coming off named Horn Creek. They have a water firming issue where they have 20.5 acre feet of water, and they were looking to build a massive reservoir, but a massive reservoir to hold that amount of water doesn't fit well into a large coarse alluvial landscape of a 13,500 foot peak. So in other words, you have big rocks that when you dig deep, and those big rocks will push holes through the liners that are required in the state of Colorado to firm water. So we started looking at what that would look like on a landscape through a series of events, and laid out a series of 15 small ponds and catchments that fit into the landscape where you don't have to do as much excavation. You can stay with fine grained materials so that you can put that material on top of a liner without puncturing the liner. And then through a series of manifolds and plumbing, we can connect all the basins and still firm the water. With that, because of the way of trying to minimize the construction needs, we came up with the idea that we had multiple ponds. Since we have multiple ponds, we've been working with Colorado Parks and Wildlife and other local fisheries biologists to figure out how we can create stocking for a different stocking regime and a different management regime for each one of these ponds, so it could be used as a fishing links course. Construction on that will be starting this month on the first hole. And the way that water firming works is that as long as you show forward progress, you don't have to have the project built right away. So we're looking at somewhere between a 7 to 10 year construction window before this course would be completely operational and they could firm all their water. The next course that we had started on back in 2021 was with Rochester University, and this came out of a project that was just for stabilization of a bank next to a dormitory that was falling in the Clinton River. But through that, we laid out a series of additional links and ponds, some of which had already historically been created by railroad interactions and disturbances. So we have a plan in place that Rochester University, RiverSHARED, and Green Watershed Restoration have a desire in the next, by 2028, to be able to be building these links courses on the campus of Rochester University in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And then the final one that I'll talk about, which will be related to the next half of the train of this talk today will be a wiregrass property, and this is in Shorter, Alabama. Shorter, Alabama is near Auburn, Alabama, in between Auburn and Montgomery. And construction date on this is a place that in about 10-15 years ago they started doing gravel mining, and the gravel mining was noticed by the EPA, and the company doing the gravel mine is in negotiations with the EPA in order to privately fund the restoration of this project because of the impacts they had from the gravel mining. So this project has to be restored, or else, you know, there'll be DOJ type of issues that come up associated with the property here. So if we look at the 1971 USGS map, you can see a series of multiple tributaries coming into the Cabahatchee Creek. And then if you look at today's aerial photography, you can see a whole bunch of ponds and no tributaries anymore. I listed where the tributaries were just so you see what tributaries were once there, and now they're all just big holes in the ground. So what we're looking to do is lower water surface elevations, create streams where streams have been removed around pits, and then leave a series of ponds. These ponds have to be left just because of balance of material. So we've been super blessed where locally there's a organization that's 10 miles away that we've been connected to through Resource Institute and the 2022 National Stream Conference called A Hero, and they deal with wounded warriors, people that are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder after military service, and hopefully you'll hear more from them in the second half of this. And then they're going to come out, try to be stewards, or what we call the guardians of these ponds. So in other words, make sure they're managed. If you have to take out fish, create some sort of sustainable fishery management plan so that once you get so much biomass, you start removing fish. Make sure that you put plantings down so that you change where people can cast from and casting lanes. And then they'll also serve as the links guides, which will be essentially a caddy going from hole to hole. You'll have different tackle. So the idea is you take a caddy with you, just like you would with clubs, but with different tackle. So this is one of the ideas, and this is most likely going to be probably one of the ones that will be operating first if everything goes well, just because the agreement with the DOJ and EPA is requiring restoration by fall 2024. So the A Heroes organization can work into this, and one of the folks associated with the A Heroes organization is very excited on recreational guiding, and so recreation guiding and that type of stuff. So she is in a Auburn University in a program, so having this be used tied into stuff that they're already doing works out really nice in this situation. So the Guardian program is kind of the stewardship program to keep these ponds, keep these areas in a place where they can be fished. The Links program helps people if they want to have a guided feature through here and have a caddy with them. If people want to be on their own, they wouldn't have to take a caddy. We do envision this one being close to 85, being on a route that's only 2 hours or less from Atlanta. So we do see, because of the interaction with A Heroes organization and the amount of people that A Heroes is connected with through wounded warrior type ideas, we do see the need for a caddy being a little bit bigger on this one, because if you have people coming out that have different abilities and maybe prosthetic limbs, you wouldn't want to have them not have somebody go with them to help them with gear if they need it. So. All right. So the fishing links is part fishing, part golf, all adventure, a new fishing experience. There's nothing fancy about this. There's nothing trademarked about this. If you have a situation where like, well, we kind of already have something like that, then let's try to figure out a way to put a pathway on there and get people introduced back to it. I do believe that there's a big issue right now in some states, like for example, Maryland is talking about creating a bill to stop stream restoration because of the idea of it cutting down trees in certain areas. So they're putting bills on it to maybe not completely stop it, but to change how stream restoration is being done. And a lot of it's related to the idea that people don't want to see trees coming down. We do think that if we create a recreational activity around ecosystem restoration, it will promote ecosystem restoration to more of the public. So people will go out there, understand what's being done, opposed to just getting angry because a tree gets cut down. So these could be destination courses, or they could just be a patch course or a sandlot course. So something you could just kind of pick up and play at and create a new course. So we're looking at creating an app that will allow the flexibility of having a defined course and then also create a course in the app. And then in that app, you would also have the opportunity to create a username, and then you could kind of score against other people as well as score against the people that are on that fishing journey with you that day. So just different opportunities of what we're looking to do with the app. Our time frame for developing the app is going to have to be probably 2024, 2025. We need something working if we're going to have the opportunity of having a course open by then. So wherever there can be a restoration project, there's probably a chance we could do a fish and links course. Promoting native species. Some of the species may be too small, may not interest people if you don't have a good diversity of species. But we look at it and say any restoration project probably has a little potential for doing something like a fish and links course if you have aquatic species in there. We are looking at some weird things. One of the things for TAC and creating more new tackle is even the idea of a net-based casting line. So you would take a fly line, take a regular fishing line, run through the middle of a hollow fly line, and then you would have a way of casting and then also pull them back on a net if you went into trying to get very small-bodied fish. We also talked recently to some folks that deal with electronics on the idea of creating small-scale electrofishing devices that work off of a small cast rod, opposed to standard electrofishing where you go out with bigger probes. So these are all for small-bodied fish, but one of the ideas is how do you catch a small-bodied fish? So if anybody's ever been at a point where they've been able to look at the detail of one of the arguments of wonderment and all in wild nature is that we can be amazed by the stars, but we can also be amazed by the complexity of the small. So if we look underneath a rock and we pick up and see the benthos underneath a rock, we can be amazed by all those benthos, but we look up at the stars and we're also amazed by the vastness of the stars. So we want to be promoting both small and large body fisheries as part of this program. So the next things that we're really looking at is what does it look like for a guardian program for stewardship? How would we create that guardian program? We're going to hope that we have people kind of say, hey, this is how we think it might look good. The first people that we think will be a part of the guardian program will be the A Heroes group. And there's an opportunity where the A Heroes group could be guardians, but they could be being supported by folks from the Auburn Extension, folks from Tuskegee Extension, related to areas where they need additional help. So there could be local universities, local 4-H programs that come alongside of the Guardians program. The links guide is definitely something that on this project in Shorter, we see that being a very big advantage to having the A Heroes organization do that, just because a lot of the guys in the A Heroes are looking for that meaningful connection as well. So, and then one of the next big things that we'll be looking to do before the end of 2024 is we need to have a working app developed. And in looking at the formation of the app, we're going to be trying to go after firms that can create an app or have a similar app that's already out there. So if you are interested in the idea, look at where there's already apps that are similar to this, and then also look at areas where maybe if you know somebody that develops apps, let us know. So with that, before we go on to the next step of this today, we're gonna I'm gonna open it up for just a couple of quick questions in case anybody has any questions before we move on to the next inspirational side.
I have a comment. This is Josh.
Yeah.
Dave, this is, I mean, I don't know, for some of the attendees, this might be a new idea. You introduced this, you guys, you and maybe it was Wade. I don't remember. You guys were introducing this idea a while ago. And I was like, that's different, you know, that's kind of really different. And that's something that I really like about this idea. It pairs these overlapping interests. It's, you know, to advance ministry of stewardship, it's not just going toward the, you know, project owners, you know, the municipalities, the DOTs, or, you know, industrial developers, but this is this gets this conversation rolling. This advances stewardship as far as the mindset of people who operate universities, of people who are, you know, with like-minded people who are outreaching, you know, a hero or the camp, and you've talked about some other potential sites as well. And it seems like building off of those energies, you know, and this idea has really developed a lot of momentum and traction and become more real. So I just want to comment that I really like that. It seems like it's kind of taken on a little bit of breath of its own, with that overlapping interest and just, I'm curious with all these different, you know, interests, are there different funding opportunities available to build and maintain, you know, these kind of sites? So all that to say, yeah, it's come quite a long ways, and I'm real excited about it. And just a comment there, and then a question is funding. Are there any unusual funding opportunities?
Yeah, and Eric talks about funding, but I don't know what that funding is, Eric. Do you want to speak about that at all?
Yeah, in my past life, I worked for the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission in their Education Information Office, and there was a source of funding. I also worked with Maryland DNR for a while too, and part of their education funding was through Wallet Bro funding. So anytime you buy, it's just like the Dingell-Johnson Act. Anytime you purchase fishing equipment, there's an excise tax that's set aside by the federal government and divvied out to the states based on the I think it's the number of square miles of fishable waters, publicly fishable waters, and some of it goes towards educational purposes. So, and there's a restoration and access component to that funding as well. So a lot of the states, I know Pennsylvania uses some of the money to increase public access to waters as well. So I think there would be an opportunity to use Wallet Bro money towards the project.
Cool. All right. Well, we're gonna move into the next phase of the talk, and the next phase of the talk is an inspirational side. So I'm going to share my kind of what gives me inspiration. It's going to be connected to the fly links concept, so it's kind of a continuation, but it's going to be a little bit different. So I wanted to kind of warn anybody that felt like they had to get off the course, the call. But I did want